Hey everyone, welcome to the next part of the Getting Started with Machine Learning series, that is functions in Python. So let us see what a function is. So a function is a block of code or a particular set of statements which run only when the function name is called. So a function has a name, and under that name it has a set of statements, and that set of statements only run when that function name is called. This helps in reusability. Okay, so if you have a set of statements or a block of code which appears repeatedly in your program, you can instead give it a name and you can use it in the form of a function. So obviously that also makes our code more readable. So if you read that function once and the statements under that function, so whenever that name comes in the program, you can easily understand what that function is doing. So it makes our code obviously more readable. Okay. So we have a few terms or keywords in the under functions in Python. One is the def keyword, def. The other is the return statement or the return keyword. We have arguments and we also have default arguments. So let us see what all these are one by one. So here I have defined a function. So you can see the syntax. Uh, Before defining a function, you always use the def keyword of Python and then the name of the function and two parentheses, opening and closing parentheses. Inside that you mention the arguments that you want to give to the function. Arguments are nothing but the input values that you give to a function so that it can process them and give you the required output. So here I have defined an add function. So as the name suggests, it adds two numbers and those two numbers are given to it as arguments. So here I have x and y. Those are the arguments that will be provided to the function, and assuming them to be of numerical type, either integer or float, it will return the sum of those two. You can see def add x and y. Inside the function we have sum, a new variable is declared, and the value of sum is equal to the sum of x and y, then that value is returned. So another keyword here is return. Return is nothing but as again the name suggests, it returns the value. Whatever value that is being calculated by the function is returned. You'll understand what return is in the next statement. So let us execute the define function, and it has been compiled. And now let us execute. Here you can see I have used a new variable a is equal to add of 3 and 5. So this should give me the result 8. So as you can see here, add, I have called add and I am giving the value of add to another variable. Here is where return comes. So here once the value of add is calculated, the return statement is executed, and this return, it gets back the value. So here add will return 8 and that 8 will be stored in A. So let us execute this. So as expected, I get an 8. 3 plus 5 gives me 8. So now let us see what default arguments are. So there might be some cases where our function might return some value based on the arguments, and sometimes the user might not provide us arguments. So here the user has to provide arguments because I have given x and y and there are no default arguments. So you can see how default arguments are defined. Here x is there and equals to 10 and y is equal to 5. So this means that if the user provides me with some argument, then that particular values should be used. And if the user does not give me any arguments, then the default arguments, that is x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 5, should be used. So let us see how this works. And I have defined the function. And now if I have provided the subtract function with 25 and 15. That is, I have provided some arguments. So the desired output is 10. So yeah, as expected, I get a 10. Right? Now if I do not give it any arguments, since I have defined some default arguments, it should use those default arguments and give me an answer. So here the values are 10 and 5. So 10 minus 5 is 5. So the answer here should be 5. And as expected, I get a 5. Even if we change these values, so let us say I give the default argument to be 15, and if I execute this, so here there will be no change since I've already provided it with some arguments, and here you will see the answer would have changed to 10. So 15 minus 5 gives us 10. So as you can see, the answer is 10. Alright, now if here we have not provided any arguments to subtract, and still we are getting an output. But in case of sum, you can see it is add, and in case of add we haven't provided it with any arguments, any default arguments, right? So this should give me an error. So if we execute it, there you go. It is telling me add missing 2 required positional arguments. So it is telling me that I've not given it the 2 arguments it needs to provide me with an answer. So that is the importance of default arguments. So another thing is that a function need not always return something. Okay. So even if you do not return anything, the function can provide you with some output. So as you can see here, I have defined another function called sum2. The function of this particular, the output of this particular function is also the same. It returns the sum of 2 numbers, x and y. Here we had add, here I have sum2. All right. So if I execute this, the function will be defined obviously, and now if I just run the code, there you go, I get a 55. The output here was also the same. A is equal to add of 3 and 5, print A, and again here I just called the function and it gave me the answer. The difference here is that here I'm returning some value, so I need to store that returned value somewhere, and that's why I'm storing it in A and then printing it. In this case, I have not returned anything. The function is just performing some set of statements and then printing the output. So here I just need to call the function. It is not returning anything, so I need not store anything anywhere. I just need to call the function. So now the people at Python, or the people who wrote Python to be precise, they have written a lot of inbuilt functions. So they have written a lot of functions in the Python programming language to make the programmers of Python's lives easier. So basically they are making our lives easier. So an example being print statement. So print, what it does, all of us know, it just prints the argument. So hello world is given, it just prints out the argument. So this is more or less about functions in Python. You can connect with us at the following link. Here we upload all of our upcoming events and Q&A sessions. We are Developer Student Club, Geetham deemed to be university. For any queries, if you have any queries or questions, you can put them up in the comment section. We will answer each and every one of them. Thank you so much.